Good afternoon and welcome to Titan Talk. Hey guys, thanks for joining us today. Today you got myself, Lieutenant Coop. We got our glorious, the local talent, Captain McFarland with us, and we've got a special guest with us, Sergeant Valdivia, Mr. Lavi, who is our St. Louis guy. He's with us, and he's gonna kind of tell us a little bit about St. Louis and what it's like out there, and kind of what we're expecting to do and how it works. So I appreciate you guys for joining us today, and just you guys got any questions, let us know in there. So, Lavi, give us a little bit about yourself. You're the coming up new star for us. You took this PRN role supervisor pretty quickly and moved out to St. Louis to help us out there. And from what I know, it's been doing pretty well. We're kind of getting ready to take off a little bit. We got a couple of new contracts coming in. So, what's St. Louis like?
It's different. Um, everything's 20 minutes away. One of the sort of standing jokes in that market. Doesn't matter if it's a block away or 5 miles away. It's 20
It's
minutes.
20 minutes.
Yeah.
It's hilarious. And that's driving, walking. It doesn't matter. It's all 20 minutes.
The traffic between the traffic patterns and the speed limits, which are all slower than they are here.
We were talking about that earlier.
Yes, we were. And it just doesn't matter where you're going. It's going to be 20 minutes.
It might be faster to walk, actually. It might be.
In some ways.
I was gonna say, if it's a block away and it takes 20 minutes, I might as well just walk and get the extra exercise. Charles and Gary, thanks for joining us today. All right, so when it comes to St. Louis, what's a little bit different about it? I mean, comparatively between the two markets, I know Kansas City very well, considering my entire career was here. But when it comes to St. Louis, I have I have some idea, but very little of idea of what's the difference in security there. What do you guys really see?
The security culture is different. Um, Hopefully, we can make some changes in a positive way over the long term. But in the short term, it's a different security culture. Um, a lot more focus on unarmed security than armed, compared to Kansas City. Um, Much less of a stopgap between armed and off-duty PD security, which we do a lot of that kind of business here in Kansas City. There's seems to be less space for that right now. Um, Hopefully, we can change that because we can add a lot of value there. I think that the marketplace isn't totally aware of yet. So yeah, that's probably the major differences. I mean, there's some institutional differences like the training
I hear
systems.
the training and the licensing is a little bit different as well. It takes a little bit longer in the St.
It
Louis.
does. It's an understatement. Yeah, it's it takes a long time to get a new officer spun up in that market.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is that a when we're talking about it taking that long, it taking a little bit longer and everything, is it from the training that they're expecting is differently, or is it a like when we do it here, we're subject to a lot of what KCMO allows, and so there's a licensing process they got to go through, and the qualifications behind that, and then we're stuck on their own schedule. So if they have their classes are full for our ranges, we won't get somebody in for 2 to 3 weeks. Is it something similar to that, or is it more what would you say
It's
is the
adjacent.
adjacent?
Yeah.
Okay.
So the dynamic is one where we have the same kinds of issues, but also additional issues. So in Kansas City, we can get officers spun up for municipalities that don't fall under the rubric of Kansas City's licensing scheme.
Right.
In St. Louis, it's really not an option because the metro license and the county license are
The same thing.
the same license.
So like St. Louis, is it again, I've never been to St. Louis. I think I flew over it one time. So when you're talking St. Louis and stuff like that, is it similar to Kansas City and where like you've got Kansas City, the greater metro, and then you've got little spin-offs up to the side, like you've got your smaller towns that are still technically connected, Raytown, Independence, and stuff like that. Are there towns like that? That's what you're talking about.
Well, the suburbs exist, but in terms of in terms of licensure, it's St. Louis county licensure because the county police
Mhm.
and the metro police, they license together.
Okay.
They cooperate in issuing licensing.
So if you don't have a St. Louis license, you're not doing security anywhere.
You're not working anywhere close to
Oh wow.
to the core of the city.
Do they have the same thing where they have an armed and an unarmed, and you've got to have one of them?
They have additional licensing that Kansas City doesn't even have.
Really?
Yeah. They break it down into like watchmen, and they actually have some special like plain clothes licensing, and
So they've got separate categories.
They've got categories that we don't have here.
Wow.
Yeah.
I mean, we've got in Kansas City, we've got there's a total of when it comes to security, there's I think 3 versions of it that they've got. They've got unarmed, they've got a class A, and they've got so there's 2 I guess 2 main categories with a couple of subcategories. You've got class A and class B, which is the authority to detain, and you've got the no authority to detain, which is class A is authority to detain, class B is not. And then in that category, in each of those categories, you've got subcategories of unarmed, armed, private investigator, and I don't want to quote myself on this one, but I believe there's one more that's extremely rare, um, that I don't think I've ever seen. But I think there's a total of 4, so there's more than that.
Yes.
Oh wow.
So the way they break it out is they achieve the same thing by different means.
Okay.
So security officer
Mhm.
is what we would consider the arresting class.
Okay.
So anybody that has a security officer license has gone through a 2-day power of arrest and arrest law course
Oh wow.
that's baked into the system in St. Louis.
And that's separate training on top of what we would instill in the officer. That's something separately they have to go through.
It's actually a somewhat more it's a more protracted version of what we do here at Titan, Kansas City,
Mhm.
but very few other companies are doing.
Right.
Whereas in St. Louis, anyone who has a security license, security officer license, is getting that training from the county.
Oh wow. Oh,
Or that piece of the training.
So that piece of the training is from the county itself.
They get a 2-day version of that training from the county.
It's kind of cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Whereas people that are like younger, or people that are couriers, or people that are watchmen, those are people that are more like the non-arresting classes of licensure.
So that would be more of a class B style
In
license.
Kansas City, be similar to that.
Okay.
Yeah. Whereas they have like on the armed side, they also have little idiosyncratic things like their couriers are licensed to carry 12 gauge shotguns and only 12 gauge shotguns. It's just a different system.
Okay.
And they're even supposed to Mirandize when they make an arrest or detainment,
Yes.
right? So
At least
that's
in-
something that's
Really?
really different. Yeah.
Yeah, and at least in the current 2-day, it's their handcuffing class is what they call it. It's arrest powers class is what it is.
Huh.
And in that class, and in the current version of the curriculum, they are instructing officers to Mirandize anyone that they're hooking
So they're
up.
having so if you in St. Louis, and tell me if I'm wrong on this, if I'm misunderstanding it, if they have the power to detain or arrest, a better way of saying it, they better read on their Miranda rights.
Yeah.
That's what it sounds like.
The relationship, at least on paper, is different. So in St. Louis, the PD has an expectation of assistance from
Right.
security officers, where in Kansas City they basically don't.
They do, but
Ish.
not. It sounds like it's in a different perspective.
It's a
with
different
their-
thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. And like as part of your licensure, you're obliged to submit a report to the county licensing agency within 24 hours of a use of force as a licensed security officer
Wow.
in St. Louis. It's a different relationship they have with
That's
the,
crazy.
with the PD.
I mean, that's not necessarily a bad relationship. Real quick, CJ, thank you for joining us. Yeah, he just said he got his GA armed officer license. That's pretty cool.
Nice.
I mean, it sounds like it doesn't sound like a completely different dynamic than what Kansas City does. They have something very similar, although we don't do the Miranda thing. That's not something required by us because I think that's where the classification comes in different on that. As a Kansas City classification, we're not arresting, we're detaining until PD arrives. And I think that's where the separation is those officers are actually arresting those individuals.
I think it's more about evidence admissibility, honestly.
Okay.
But yeah, it's just a different way of looking at it.
Yeah, that's actually kind of cool though. I mean, it's definitely a different way of going about it. It's a different way of, I guess it would be, to me, it kind of sounds like they're imparting a little bit more trust in the security system out there, saying, "Hey, not only do we trust that you're going to be correct in this, but we trust that you're going to follow the process, and that you're going to be able to maintain that level of responsibility."
I think that's consistent with the sort of larger rubric because that training is coming from the county.
Yeah.
They're not depending on the company to provide that
An individualized company.
for the officer. The county is providing that. So like also when you get your what do they call it? Protective devices, I think what they call it in St. Louis. Basically your accessory fences, TON, OC, those sorts of things. Those
Right.
classes are also offered by the county.
Now, is it a mandatory that you have those classes to carry those instruments?
Wow. Yeah. So that's probably why it's different, is because they're taking the burden of
Responsibility for
making
that, make
sure
sure
that
you know
you
what you're
have that
doing.
training. Now, I would argue that it on the like case law side and like field practice law side of things, they probably go deeper than we do here at Titan in Kansas City.
Mhm.
Thing that they don't do as well as we do, in my opinion, is most of the stuff is like zero touch, zero practicum. It's all theoretical. It's all
theory based.
It's all book.
This
essentially.
is how you do it, and they show you a picture, and they don't actually let you do it.
The exception is the OC. So like they do a dummy spray as part of the OC cert, but everything else is pretty hands off. Like with baton, they can't. Like baton is the only thing where they actually kind of do it like we do here in house,
Right.
in Kansas City. Everything else is very sort of bookish.
All right.
And so you went through those classes, right? Just kind of see what they were like and get your licensing as
Oh,
well.
I had to.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that's good. So, I mean, also, we've got somebody who knows the market out there.
Out of curiosity, that makes me kind of wonder because there are companies like ASP who, with ASP baton and handcuffs and stuff, they provide a training course on how to operate, manipulate those those items. If you had those classes, it wouldn't be enough. So if you went to ASP on ASP baton and you wanted to take a defense class on it, and you were to take that up there and say, "Hey, I've got this, I've been certified by ASP," you would still need to get certified through the state on that, or through St. Louis.
Well,
At least that's what it sounds
interesting
like.
you pose the question in that exact way, because they use contractors for these classes.
Right.
The contractor that's currently doing,
Please tell me it's ASP.
they are using the ASP power plant.
That's hilarious.
That's what they're using.
That's great. I mean, again, when it
And that's
comes,
not a criticism.
no, ASP is
It's a good presentation.
if I could get sponsored by ASP, that'd be great. If anybody from ASP is watching, please let me know. No, I mean, ASP has been working with law enforcement forever and ever and ever, at least as long as I know, and they've been part of the training curriculum for law enforcement for years, in with what they use and all that stuff. So to hear that St. Louis is using instead of using a law enforcement resource, they're using an instructor from ASP certified by that. That's actually kind of interesting and really cool. But it does make me wonder that if you were to get certified through the company separately, if that would count or if they would still make you go through that training class.
No idea. But for what it's worth, it just sort of consistent with this idea that the relationship is different.
Mhm.
All these classes we're discussing are taught at the police academy.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I guess that shouldn't come as a surprise because when we do the range training for KCPD, it's done at the academy there.
Right.
So I guess there's some similarities in that.
Yeah, they have a shared academy between the metro, or is it metro or county? I can't remember. Either way, it's their fire
Right.
and police. They have a shared academy space.
Law enforcement. Hold on, real quick. Law enforcement and the fire guys share an academy.
Yeah,
That's a crazy thought.
It's a crazy softball game, is what it is.
seems to work for them.
Hey, that's kind of cool though. I mean, there's always been that sly joke that law enforcement and fire and EMS and all those guys are always, hounding each other. And I see it on social media, not all the time, but I'm on social media very little. But
St. Louis has a great boxing tournament every year.
Fire and
firefighter versus a policeman.
really,
Yeah,
that's
very
kinda
well
cool.
attended, very well watched on TV.
That's pretty cool.
That's
Yeah,
great.
it is.
Yeah.
It is.
Imagine doing that between security companies. Getting a couple of major companies in for a boxing match to see what happens.
It wouldn't be fair.
It'd be funny though.
It would.
No, but that's pretty cool. I mean, I know law enforcement and everyone always jokes that law enforcement and fire always have they're always at each other's throats and they're always messing with you. But it's a very loving relationship. They're always joking with each other. And so to see that there's a community out there that's so well put together in St. Louis that they're so close that they're sharing an academy area, that's actually really cool.
It is.
But I never would have known that had you not brought that up today. That's awesome. All right. Well, awesome. In St. Louis, I don't know if we can go live with new contracts or anything like that, but I know that we're starting 2 new ones out there pretty soon. One starts in February coming up, and that is we're starting it just similar to what we do here. We're starting it with PRNs, and then we're looking to move forward with putting permanent staffing out there.
Yep.
And then we're starting another one. I don't know the ETA on that one, but it's a really large contract from what I know.
That's
And I mean,
looking to start soon as well.
that one's starting
Mhm.
in, and that's mostly in St. Louis with a little bit of it here too, right?
Mhm.
That's pretty cool.
Well, that's a good question that I wanted to ask you, Lovey. How did you get the St. Louis market going? What was the first steps? How many officers do you currently have, and how many did you start with?
Good questions.
Written on the back of my hand.
It's a very small crew. um,
Which is what you have to do.
yeah,
You have to start small.
yeah,
Because we started with no client whatsoever out there, right?
nothing. We started the St. Louis operation with no clients.
You said the way we started, we sent you out there to see what was going on.
Yeah. No, I think that I don't know what we can discuss. Um,
So when it comes to I try not to give out client names and stuff
Yeah.
like that, but like how many officers you have, how many were stuff like that. That's
so
fine.
I think by the numbers, I think the initial hire was we produced what, 2 officers?
Yeah.
And
So full disclosure, we were both out there, and I called Lavi one day and said he was a Kansas City PRN. Just a little backstory on that. And said, we're thinking about this St. Louis thing. How'd you feel about it? And he jumped all over it and just went straight out there, and we held some hiring events out of a hotel lobby.
I remember
Yeah.
when it first came up. I think it was like all within a 2-week time frame.
Yeah.
We were like, "Hey, we're going to start this St. Louis market. We're not sure what's going to happen, but we want to jump in and test the waters." And normally, when you like most companies will be jump in, they'll put a foot in the pool and they'll test it with their toe, and they're like, "Yeah, this is the water's not that bad." Really, we kind of be like, "Hey, look, there's a pool in St. Louis. Lavi, go jump in."
Yeah, Lavi cannonballed right in there. He was going door to door. He was cold calling. He was just all over the place, and his efforts really have started to pay off now with the clients that we're reeling in out there, and it's he's just built a good foundation, got some good officers. How many officers do you have out there now, Lavi?
on paper, I think we're 5 deep in St. Louis. Between full-time and part-time hours, that's about where we're at.
Right, and those of you who are thinking, well, that's not very many. That's how many PRNs we started with in Kansas City.
I say we started just under a year ago now here in Kansas City with PRNs, and I think we started with 2.
Yeah, absolutely. That's how you build it up, and you got to get some of your permanent clients going to help support that, and be able to support the temporary business as well. And Lavi's just done a fantastic job of managing that
And
staff out there.
phenomenal.
Yep.
Beatpot,
There we go.
there it is.
Phenomenal.
Beatpot says hello. Hey, how's it going? Thanks for joining us. Beatpot poses a question: how is crime and protection different in St. Louis?
Good question.
Hmm. How long do we have?
As long as you need. So
My perception of it is I mean, the statistics, I think about the statistics to back this up as well, but um, my perception of it is that there is actually a greater need in St. Louis, um, but less willingness to address it um, through competent, cost-effective private security.
okay.
The sort of cultural instinct is to go to off-duty PD.
So we
Not that
kind of
there's anything wrong with that.
no, we run into something similar with Omaha. They love their off-duty PD out
Mhm.
there. There's a ton of work for the off-duty police departments out there for the guys who do that thing. And I think it's a very good thing. It means that they've got a very good relationship with their law enforcement. It means that everybody, they have a bigger trust for them out there for that, and that's always wonderful to see. Kind of honing in and honing in on that and trying to still take work or steal work, however you want to say it.
But but it's a
Absolutely.
special problem for us,
Oh,
right?
absolutely.
So like for you know the average security company in St. Louis, it's not a problem. For us it's a particular challenge because of our corporate culture and because of our business model and how we bring value to our customers.
Mhm.
Um, in the unarmed space, unfortunately, the trend is often a race to the bottom in the industry. It's a sad truth. Whereas in the higher risk segments, in the armed segments, um, it's not always the case. A company like Titan is an easier sell when you're selling quality, skill,
Right.
discretion, customer service. Like it's not a race to the bottom. It's who can actually make this something that we don't have to think about, something we don't have to worry about lawsuits, and we can everybody can just do their jobs and sleep at night. And
Right.
I mean, that's something that Titan excels at.
Once again, then we'd had that conversation with Ryan a little while back in one of our podcasts when we did our beverages with the bosses.
Yeah.
And in that podcast, we had talked a little bit about Titan's history. And when we first started as a company, it was a uh, take everything under the sun, every account you can get your hands on, every job, everything we could do, we would do, whether or not it was good business. And throughout the years, we've kind of molded ourselves, learned what really is a good business model and what is good business to have, not just the effects of is it high risk or is it low risk but what are the clients like? And so I think Titan as a individual as a company over the years has kind of learned and which has been able to put guys like Captain McFarland here, me, yourself, where we've got this understanding of the difference of what good security is versus, for lack of a better way of saying it, the bottom of the bucket, the cheapest of what you can offer, and knowing the difference and being able to apply that into the field where we fall into our own individual area when we're not the mom and pop who's offering just a body that can cover the store. We're actually offering somebody who has a little bit of knowledge basis and is able to be useful to law enforcement. And I think that we've fallen into that, and it sounds like it might actually help us in St. Louis more than it
I
might
think it will in the long term. I think it's a short term challenge. In the long term, I think it's all upside for us, honestly. It's just bridging the space
bridging the
between.
gap. Yeah.
Well, when we did most of our interviews, I would say almost all of them were prior security in St. Louis. And they with the training that we have to offer, they'd never heard of it.
Yeah.
Here's a packet, here's video, have fun. And now, we started this about a month ago. Any St. Louis officer is going to come out here to our Kansas City training operation and go through our normal training because that's just so important to our officers.
Well, I mean, and you're not wrong. I
That's why I said it.
well, I mean, you've said things you've been wrong before.
I'm Captain McFarland. I'm never wrong.
Um, one of the things I think I really like that we offer as a company is our training. I think it really sets us apart. So knowing that St. Louis has an additional, and that kind of that's kind of makes me wonder that if we have them do the full course here, and stuff like that, they're still going to be required to do the St. Louis version of it. So now they're getting 35 hours worth of training here with us. Now they're getting an additional. You said it was a 2-day course. Are these 8-hour
I
courses?
mean, we already have the best trained officers in the market in Kansas City.
Right. But we're adding on to the additional
We
training with their
in the
side.
St. Louis market, we will have the best trained officers in St. Louis by a huge margin.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it'll be our week of training plus St. Louis's county training. Yeah, it's going to be very well trained officers.
Good. So we have another comment. Miss Fife
Mm.
saying, I worked out for Sergeant Valdivia on a temp post. He's a very solid guy. St. Louis is going to blow up. Titan.
Oh, Fife is looking for a raise there.
I can't give you a raise 5.
Five is
But thank you for the kind words.
well, she was one of our Kansas City PRNs, went out
Mhm.
and helped with a gig out in St. Louis. Can't speak highly enough about her. She's fantastic.
But
Apparently she wants to go to St. Louis, though, is what it sounds like.
yeah, and sounds like someone's up for a move.
Yeah.
But no, so I mean that's really cool that with the additional training will kind of it'll be an additional add-on and it'll make the guys a little bit better. Um, Adding that additional to it just I think it adds value to it and it makes it makes it no choice. One of the reasons I really like working for Titan and I love the company itself is the amount of training that we offer now is already well above our near any of the competitors that I know of. And so adding that in and then adding the additional training that the state's going to require that they require, I think it just makes it so much better. So when we go to these clients and say, hey, I'm happy enough and to say it out loud and on a public space, it's YouTube. I think we have the best officers in the industry. Just being able to say, hey, Now, not only can I guarantee it, I can show evidence of it because they receive so much more training than the typical. And so I think it adds that value to where law enforcement can look at it and be like, hey, this is what we're looking at. These guys get 35 hours or 40 hours if they're armed on top of an additional. Are the classes out there 6 hours, 8 hours? What are we looking at? What do you think they are?
So, arrest powers handcuff class, that's 2 days. OC is a half day. Baton is a half day. They also have a parking cert. That's either a half day or a full day for parking
I
Like
think
parking
most.
enforcement?
or traffic, basically traffic control. If you want to do anything that requires that kind of work in St. Louis, you have to have that cert
Okay.
under
Okay.
your belt. And I think part of that's because, well, like everything else in life, something probably went wrong at some point, and so
Mhm.
there's that. But also, they do have contract security doing that kind of work at the airport specifically,
Hmm.
and so I think that's part of the.
Okay. That's kind of cool. Awesome. Well, I appreciate a little bit of the background you've been able to give us on that. I mean, that's awesome to be able to see what we've got going out there and to hear firsthand account of what the training's like and the market and everything. Um, can we talk more about different policies in St. Louis? Okay. Um, that would kind of in regards to what policies in general are you looking for differences for? That was BPOTS. I mean, there's tons of different. I mean, policies are going to change from city to city almost. So I mean, there are different policies for Mission, Kansas, than there are for Kansas City, Kansas City, Missouri. Kansas City, Kansas has its own different policies for things. So I mean, that's talking about the differences on policies is going to be difficult without knowing all of the policies hand on foot. Knowing them right there. So I
Beyond the one I already mentioned about being required to submit a report to the.
for the use of force.
Yeah,
Now, let me ask you: this, is that
I can't
any
think of any beyond that. I'm sure there's others, but off the top of my
Is that
head,
let me I interesting on that one. Is that any use of force? So is that anytime like when you say use of force, do you mean anytime handcuffs come on somebody? Only when you hit somebody? What do
I
you
don't want to speak out of turn because I don't have the paperwork in front of me right now.
okay.
I think it's either that or something like that. I just want to say wrong on the
Right.
record.
Okay.
Um, but yeah, it's it's a thing. Like if something happens in that capacity,
You've got 24 hours to report it.
the county wants to know about it. Yeah.
And is that so we have our own individual reporting system with Titan. Um, when you say is it a report that they got to submit to us that we got to submit to the city, or is this a separate form that they have to fill out for the city itself or for the county?
Well, so I haven't had to interface with the detective that runs that program yet because we haven't
That's a good point. We haven't had to use it
we
yet.
haven't
Okay,
had a user for
Which is
that's a good thing.
keep that running.
which is a win.
Mhm.
Knock on wood.
So yeah, I mean, in the event that that happens, I will immediately be interfacing with the detective that administers that and make sure that we
Follow the
don't make any
policies and
mistakes in executing
Yep.
that process. So on the backside of that, I'd be able to tell you in every dirty detail.
Mhm.
we'll have to reapproach that if anything ever happens. We'll have to come back to that because I'm actually kind of interested in that one now. That
Yeah.
makes me wonder. But awesome. No, that's all good information to know. Thanks for coming on and giving us a little bit of background on that. So you're here with us requalifying. Wow, that was with us this week, correct? You're
For Titan
doing
Range.
all our stuff again on the
Mhm.
Titan side.
Yep.
How often do you have to recall with St. Louis? Because I know with KCMO, it's every year you have to recall if you're armed and unarmed. You have to do your licensing and everything. Same thing. Is it the same? Is it once a year you have to do it out there, or
6 months.
6 months? Every 6 months you've got to get relicensed. Wow. Okay.
It's a 2-day class.
Okay.
Yeah, they take it seriously.
Oh my goodness. I would say they take it they take it very seriously.
Now that's the only thing that's not done at the academy.
Is
They
that
have
recall class?
they have their contractors that teach them at their own range facilities. There's two contractors at the moment. There's two contractors that are
Okay.
set up to do the county certification classes and range quals.
And so that's all the classifications. Any type of security license they have out there is every 6 months you've got to renew.
No. So that's the armed specifically.
Okay.
Yeah.
The unarmed or watch.
Like yeah. So the the arrest or handcuff
Mm.
the security officer, that's like a 5-year renewal.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's a pretty good gap.
Okay. That's interesting. It's kind of cool. A little bit of difference on that one.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Well, that's really kind of all I had. Bobby, out of curiosity, a little background on you. What is
Sure,
before working as a PRN for us? What do you have any security background, the manager style?
sure, sure. Not a lot of management as such. Um, my story in the industry, I guess, starts in college. So I actually started uh, in college as a med student at UMKC's dual degree program.
Okay.
So I'm not a doctor. I dropped out. So made my parents proud. I dropped out of med school. Um, but I um, started working for the UMKC Police Department
Mhm.
while I was at UMKC. So that was my first gig in the industry. And then I've done some stuff on the tech side, um, and related off and on. But in terms of security specific, I've done a few things at a couple different private security firms. Um, done more agency work than anything else. I did a almost 6-year stint at the Missouri Department of Conservation. Um, worked as an instructor and range safety officer for the state there. Um, loved that. That was a really good gig. Learned a lot.
I say most everybody who's an instructor at some point in their career loves that more than they do anything
Yeah.
else.
Mm,
I've been a range instructor for Titan for I think just under 2 years now, and I think that's the best part of my job is when I get to go do that stuff.
agreed. Um, then the next agency gig that I did was a year and a half, I want to say, stint with the Department of Corrections.
Okay.
Um, worked as a corrections officer, helped with the DT sergeant at my facility, doing some inspection there. Um, and then eventually moved over to the facility side as a reserve officer and full-time institutional locksmith.
Okay.
So I was responsible for the physical access security systems for an entire state prison. Actually, I guess temporarily 2 different state prisons. Um, learned a lot there as well. And then did some other stuff and found my way here
Okay.
and started as a even with that on my resume, I still started as a posted up in the grocery
I
store
say base
security
officer.
officer.
Yep.
Yep, absolutely.
I think everybody who joins Titan, okay, not everybody, I'd say a majority of everybody starts as a post officer.
Mhm.
I've been here a decade, and my first post was in Lawrence, Kansas. You know, and here I sit. I think I at the 5 year mark, 6 year mark, and I'd moved up to patrol officer to patrol corporal to sergeant and then scheduling manager. I think was where I hit my 6 year mark. I think I was scheduling manager by that time. But I think
Um,
majority of everybody who's in a supervisor position at this point was at one point an officer standing at a price chopper or standing somewhere else at a store location, just working a shift. I don't think any of us ever started outside of that or went straight there. I think you did too, didn't you?
Sure did.
See, it's just and I think that's where it starts is we all start from the base layers, kind of like what we do with training. We start from the bottom, doesn't matter where you come from. With our range training in particular, I don't care if you've had 10 years of firearms experience. You start at the same level training everybody else does. You start at the bottom, and we work our way up, so that way everybody gets the same idea of what's going on, and everybody gets ends up being in the same place. So,
yeah.
I mean, that's it.
Well, it's one
Look at you
thing.
now,
It's one thing to say you're hungry, right?
right?
If you're hungry, prove
Work,
it.
yeah,
Yeah.
and
Sorry, guys. Pregnant wife at home. Gotta make sure I don't have to go.
so
But
I
the
mean,
other thing too is that, I think being in that headspace where you're always learning is super important.
mhm,
I think that's something that separates people that are going to become supervisors and managers at some point. Even when I was working as a rank and file RSO for conservation, that was something that we talked about a lot in house was like, you get a guy that shows up to the range. So we did half our day was civilian shooting. The other half of the day range was closed. People thought the range was closed. It wasn't. We were actually doing law enforcement shoots.
right.
We hosted every alphabet agency group you can imagine under the sun. Um, We have a really cool conversation about who had the coolest toys. The answer, postal inspectors, by the way.
Really?
Yeah,
I would expect the ATF to
no,
have
we had
some.
ATF, FBI, DEA, like literally every
It was alphabet
county
soup.
county SWAT, the troopers, the CERT teams with the
Yeah.
troopers. Postal inspectors had the coolest toys by far.
That's
Yeah.
kind of an interesting thought process that our postal workers have better toys than the ATF and FBI.
But the one thing we always said was, regardless of who was coming, and it was always anyone
Hmm.
that says they're an expert, get low and run. If you think you're an expert, I want to stay as far away from you as I can.
It's funny you say that. In one of our other podcasts recently, we went over something very similar. I'm an electrician by trade, and in school, when I was in college for it, one of my instructors who'd been an electrician for 40 years. The dude made when I say made a career out of it, that's an understatement. Like
Wow.
he was third generation electrician. And this is somebody that if they came up to me and said, I know everything about electrical, he'd be probably one of the few people I'd look at and be like, I kind of believe that, third generation. He walks up and goes, if you ever meet anybody who's an electrician and they think they know everything, get away from him because he's going to get you hurt. And when a third generation electrician tells you that he doesn't know everything and that nobody knows everything, it's one of those, it's like, this is kind of eye opening. I don't think anyone will ever. So I do the same thing. If I ever run across someone who's like, I know everything about this industry, I'm like, that's not true. And I'm going to go stand over here now because now I'm a little worried that I'm going to get hurt.
Mm-hmm.
And so, but, well, awesome. I don't really have anything else. How about yourself? Do you got any other questions you'd like to ask? Anything you want to bring up?
How do you feel about the Chiefs as the #1 seed?
Oh,
I'm Captain McFarlane. I have to.
Sports analogies.
You can say I don't care.
I am not. I'm not big on the sports ball. I'm right here with Coop.
thank you.
We can talk to you about rally racing all day.
Oh, man after my own.
Not the sports ball.
Wow. Well,
I don't have anything against the sports ball. It's just not me.
I'm going to start calling it that from now on. Sports ball. I love that.
this just became a very lonely room.
Oh,
How about you? What do you think about the Chiefs being first seed?
Does it really matter? Does my audience really care here?
I mean, they do. They're sports fans.
Well, they live in Kansas City, so
Not all. I mean, we got a guy from GA here.
that's fair. That's fair.
At least I hope he's still here. CJ, if you're still here, please let us know. Hi, Brittany. Hi, Brittany.
Hi, Brittany.
Oh boy. I tell you what. On a serious note, maybe it's an unserious note.
By the way, we were caught a long time ago.
But who
They
got
said
us?
they said Cat McFarland's looking a little elfy on the shelfie.
Who got us?
Oh no, they all. I mean, it was Charles said it like right into it. He goes, "Hey, Roses."
Also disrespectful.
But we got a. I'm never gonna say his name, and even though he tries multiple times to get me to say his name, I'm not gonna say it because of what it sounds like. But he says, "Dang, Cat McFarland looks a little elfy today."
Oof.
Go Braves, chop on.
Yikes. Yeah, we're gonna delete that comment. It's just good to be a Kansas Cityan, We expect perfection. Kind of like Titan.
I've seen them play a few times, and
No,
they worry me a
you
little.
can't say I don't like.
I
What'd
don't.
you call it? Sports ball.
Sports ball.
You can't say sports ball and then have an opinion.
I don't have an opinion. I'm just saying I've seen them.
You don't even get to make a comment.
I can. It's not. There's no guarantee it's going to be right.
Yeah, Captain McFarland, the real one, owes me money for having to endure this today. He is working hard down there, though. If anybody's calling the lieutenant phone, please take it easy on him.
He owe you a bagel. You're gonna get 2 bagels.
You're gonna get 2 bagels out of this.
Can we shout out restaurants here?
I mean, it's sure we're not sponsored. So
Perfect.
I mean,
Meshuggah
Bagels.
Meshuggah Bagels is just underrated. Absolutely underrated.
Never
It's
even
the
heard of
smoked salmon
Oh, they're so
sandwich. It's on a bagel. You can get on everything.
good.
babe.
They're so good.
I mean,
where
I
are
can
they?
tell you it's good. Right to the
Stuff.
Yeah.
Really?
Over by
Don't act surprised. You're here. Your face is like, oh, I'm a cat. Like, not know
now
this.
you're lashing out because you don't know sports ball.
No, they're
No.
they're right next to GT.
Really?
Yeah.
Right next to them.
How am I
You'd never know it was
seen 'em?
there. Yeah.
All right. Well, I feel a little cheapish now.
Yeah. It's fantastic.
All right. Well,
You know what we're doing for lunch tomorrow? Ooh,
ooh,
Bobby's in town too.
well, we could totally do that for lunch tomorrow.
We're
They'll be
going.
open tomorrow. They're closed today.
Yeah.
Are they
I
really?
know.
Yeah.
We learned that the hard way. Try to be
Did
nice.
you go up there today?
No, try to be nice for Lavi when he was still here in Kansas City, and they were closed. It's fine.
Oh, so all right. Well, cool. I think that's really all I have. Lieutenant Rosa, since we've been busted, we're gonna go back to that.
Yeah.
They called us so early. I had to just keep going for a little bit. But it was the second we were on. They were like, "Hey, Roses."
To all the officers, can't overstate enough. We appreciate what you do.
Absolutely.
Oh, that's I say that every podcast, and I think I'm going to be saying that for the rest of my natural life here. If it wasn't for our officers, we wouldn't be able to do cool things like have this podcast or be able to go to St. Louis and start that market or continue the market in Omaha and do all these things like that and have you down here or send you up there on a whim and hope and pray it works like it did like it is. So I mean, if it's not for y'all out in the field, for everything you do and all the hard work you put in, we wouldn't be able to do any of those cool things. So
That's right.
thank you so much.
Let's reward you guys with everybody give me a call. I've got a spot for you, I'm sure, at the NFL draft in April. It's
Oh
I
yeah.
don't know if we've made that
Still
public yet.
well, it's public now. Isn't it?
That's
Is
all.
that April?
In April.
That's all hands for sure.
Oh, that's definitely all
All
hands.
hands on deck.
That is definitely an all hands
Yep.
thing.
Are you dragging me back down?
Oh, you'll be here. Yeah, you'll be here.
You're at least doing 3 shifts.
Though,
Like that's
I said, give me a call, but hold off on that, guys. I'll get it all. We're getting everything squared away, and I'm sure there'll be spots for everybody.
so awesome. Well, I think that's all I got. Lavi, I thank you so much for. I know you're already down here. I kind of dragged you in earlier. I was kind of showed up to both of them.
Can I point one thing out there? I believe somebody got on there and said hello to you and Lavi, but not myself.
Oh, absolutely. And I love her even more for it.
that seems a little off-putting.
Although I will say he just Brittany, if you're still here, he
Maybe
did
it's-
just show us the new background on his phone, on his lock screen, and just adorable, just absolutely adorable.
Dang it.
She's just a fellow motorsports fan. That's what it is.
Yeah.
She's grounded.
He's got nothing to talk about in your sports ball.
She can't talk.
Yes, she can.
She can.
She just did.
Well,
So I think we're going to call it there, guys. I appreciate y'all for joining us today. For those of you in the field, thank you so much for everything you do. Like I said before, without you guys, we wouldn't be able to do these cool things. I wouldn't be able to harass these guys. See, she's laughing at you now. I wouldn't be able to harass these guys on air in front of everybody and vice versa.
that's
So
it for me, guys.
thank you guys so much. Again, Lavi, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you.
Hopefully when you're back in town and maybe we can steal you again and get you back on here. And once everything turns out the way in St. Louis and takes off, maybe we can have you down here and talk a little bit more about how awesome it's doing and what it's like out there, if it's gotten any better or any worse or anything in between. So thank you guys so much for joining us today. Thank you guys for joining me here. I know I kind of, like I said, dragged you in last minute. So thank you so much for being amenable to that. But we're going to call it, guys. You can enjoy the rest of your day, enjoy your week, and we will see you guys on Friday. So thanks so much.